It's the ultimate Victorian public school poem, the equation of playing field and battlefield. The Empire is a great game, all wrapped up in a sentimental hymn to decent, understated patriotism. It's ridiculous, of course, but hugely effective, and Baden-Powell wanted to use it to inspire boys of every class.
Many Edwardians assumed public school values were the privilege of public school boys, but Baden-Powell was more ambitious.
Baden-Powell wanted scouting to cross the traditional class divides, which he called artificial anyway. His vision was not just for boys from the cloister, but boys from the inner cities. The 4th Scout law states that a scout is a friend to all, and underneath that it says in big letters, a scout must never be a snob.
For a man of his class, Baden-Powell's insistence that all scouts were equals may have been surprising, but it was genuine.
At this time, cricketers at Lord's went in through different entrances, players and gentlemen, and it's not cricket, you know, is a phrase which denotes everything that we'd like to think is British fairness. But society in Edwardian England was anything but fair, and he had a pretty good gut feeling that that was so. At the same time, he was frightened by the Labour Party. So he had these two sort of almost schizophrenic, opposite ideas motivating him.
We are all socialists in that we want to see the abolition of the existing brutal anachronism of war and of extreme poverty and misery shivering alongside of superabundant wealth and so on. But we do not quite agree as to how it is to be brought about.
Baden-Powell was very worried by what he called professional agitators going around stirring up trouble. He writes, "There are a lot of men who go howling about their rights, who've never done anything to earn any rights. Do your duty first, and you'll get your rights afterwards."
I was once accused of mistrusting men with waxed moustaches. Well, so to a certain extent I do. It often means vanity, and sometimes drink.
But why should anyone listen to the thoughts of Baden-Powell? Well, because he was the most famous man in Britain. This is just the tip of the iceberg of all the merchandise devoted to celebrating Baden-Powell. It's all here. There's the Baden-Powell alarm clock, the Baden-Powell shaving mirror, Baden-Powell spoons, Baden-Powell egg cup. There's an ostrich egg painted with the face of Baden-Powell. The Baden-Powell cigars. He'd have hated that, because he hated smoking. And it wasn't just artifacts, there was music to accompany them. Here we have the Baden-Powell March, a patriotic song for our hero, BP. Hurrah, 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 whiz-bang, whiz-bang. Lots of rhyming of the word fought with jolly good sort. Why was he so ridiculously famous? Well, he was the heroic defender of Mafeking, a small town in South Africa.
Hurrah for BP, for holding a fort. Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah. He's just the right sort, our hero BP. Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah.
Baden-Powell was a surprise recipient of national fame and military glory. After school, he joined the army, and over the next 20 years, he served diligently right across the empire. He was never a standard-issue military man. Instead, he was fascinated by a form of reconnaissance work known as scouting. The covert scrutiny of an area to gather information. It needed initiative, observation skills, and self-reliance, and Baden-Powell excelled at all of them. He gained a reputation as a bit of a maverick, but became one of the Army's youngest colonels. In 1899, the Boer War broke out. Baden-Powell was sent to South Africa under orders to engage the enemy in the north of the region with the help of local recruits. It soon became clear the advancing Boers had superior manpower, so Baden-Powell decided to hold out in the town of Mafeking.
Even 70 years later, Baden-Powell's exploits at Mafeking could inspire small boys, including me. I wrote a project about the Boer War when I was 11. I wrote, Baden-Powell, though remembered for the Boy Scouts, is hardly ever given credit for his defence of Mafeking. Not strictly true, but it's sort of controversial opening. It's very important in histories. He got the men to obey him to the letter, and they succeeded doing as they were told. He baffled the enemy with bluff and tactics. And here he is, about to do it. Right from the outset, Baden-Powell was heavily outnumbered. There were about 2,000 armed men in Mafeking. 1,100 of them whites, the rest natives, and only about a quarter of all of them had any sort of military training. These lot were facing 6,000 Boers.
This was no ordinary engagement, and it tested Baden-Powell as a leader and a strategist. It also crystallised the ideas that would later form the core of Scouting for Boys.
Baden-Powell was assisted in his defence of the town by an unlikely force, a group of boys. Gathered together before the siege started, they became a sort of unofficial cadet corps. They performed a vital role taking messages between the various defenders, often on bicycles and under fire.
In later life, Baden-Powell would recount the stirring story of the cadets at Mafeking to inspire English boys.
I said to one of these boys on one occasion, "You will get hit one of these days riding about like that when shells are flying." And he replied, "I pedal so quick, sir, they'd never catch me." Would any of you do that?
Much of Baden-Powell's subsequent reputation was based not on his complex military strategies, but his use of tricks and ruses to try and fool the Boers into thinking the British were better equipped than they were. They didn't have any mines, but Baden-Powell got these men to walk out beyond the perimeter, carrying big black boxes, and then to bury them deep in the sand at intervals. Then later on he let off a stick of dynamite in the same area, and the Boers were convinced they were laying a minefield. Another of his tricks was to stake out all these posts along the front, and then to have men moving between them as if they were laying barbed wire. They weren't, because they didn't have any barbed wire, but the Boers couldn't see that, and so they believed that the whole of this front here was fortified. Again, I mean, it was a sort of slightly bonkers, but a brilliantly effective ruse.
Despite such daring innovations, Baden-Powell's problems magnified. The town was shelled. Many were injured or died. Horses were killed for meat, and food was heavily rationed. Yet convinced he must lead by example, Baden-Powell's positive attitude remained unshaken.
People expect you to be able to give them an idea of how long they're going to be in this position and whether the food's going to hold out. And you effectively have to pretend to be omniscient. You have to be ultra calm. And Baden-Powell had been a very successful amateur actor, and he knew what was required. He could act really cool.
The siege lasted for 216 days, but throughout it, Baden-Powell's performance, because in a sense that's what it was extraordinary. He managed to maintain not only a stiff upper lip, but a smile as well. When he wasn't pulling stunts against the Boers, he was putting on plays in the town or staging games. And when the public at home heard about his exploits, they glowed with pride. This was true British grit.